Today is January 6th. It's the 6th day of the year, and this is the On This Day podcast. At 12 years of age, Ineza Ganyabayajiu knew she would devote herself to a religious life. 6 years later, on this day in 1929, the young 18-year-old arrives in Darjeeling, India, to begin her training with the Sisters of Loreto. Having learned English at their abbey in Ireland prior to traveling to India, Ineza is ready to immerse herself in her new life as a Catholic nun. 2 years later, the young Albanian takes her first religious vows and a new name, choosing to be named after the patron saint of missionaries, Teresa de Lisieux. She becomes Sister Teresa, adopting the Spanish spelling of the name. Sister Teresa embarks on her religious path as a teacher in the Loreto convent in eastern Calcutta, India. She spends nearly 20 years there, eventually becoming the headmistress of the school. However, she has a life-changing experience while traveling by train to Darjeeling for her annual retreat. Sister Teresa later describes it as the call within the call. She receives a divine order to leave the convent and to help the poor while living among them. As a child, Sister Teresa had been enthralled by stories of missionaries. This is what she wanted to do, to work as a missionary, not a teacher. In 1948, she embarks on what will be her life's mission to help the poor. She trades her nun's habit for a white sari with a blue border and sets out to mother Calcutta's poorest citizens. Her first year is difficult. With no income, Mother Teresa is forced to beg for food and supplies. She's tempted by the comforts of the convent, but she doesn't give in. Doubt and loneliness are constant companions, but she will devote the next 49 years of her life to working with the poor. In 1950, the Vatican permits Mother Teresa to transform the diocesan congregation into the Missionaries of Charity. Over the years, the Missionaries of Charity manage orphanages, AIDS hospices, and charity centers worldwide, caring for refugees, the poor, the homeless, the blind, the disabled, the aged, the alcoholics, and victims of flood, famine, and epidemics. Mother Teresa receives global recognition and awards for her work. In 1979, she is honored with the Nobel Peace Prize, quote, for work undertaken in the struggle to overcome poverty and distress, which also constitutes a threat to peace. But for all the praise, there is also criticism. Allegations of the misuse of charitable donations surface. The medical treatments provided in her institutions are considered inadequate, and it's argued that her true objective is religious conversion of those who come under her care. Nevertheless, Mother Teresa remains a symbol of service to the less fortunate. In 1997, Mother Teresa passes away at the age of 87, and in less than 2 years, she's on the fast track for sainthood. The mandatory 5-year waiting period before formal evaluation of a candidate for beatification is waived when Pope John Paul II grants special dispensation in 1999, allowing the process to begin. 17 years later, Pope Francis elevates Mother Teresa to sainthood. In his remarks, he reminds the world that, quote, mercy was the salt which gave flavor to her work. It was the light which shone in the darkness of the many, who no longer had tears to shed for their poverty and suffering. A lifetime of work, answering a call that first beckons to her when Saint Teresa of Calcutta arrives in India for the first time on this day in 1929. On this day in 1994, on the eve of the U.S. Figure Skating Championships, Nancy Kerrigan steps off the ice inside Detroit's Cobo Hall. She slips on a pair of skate guards and walks down a corridor towards the locker room. The sound of running footsteps behind her makes Kerrigan turn around. At that moment, she sees what appears to be a crowbar or a club swinging down towards her knee. In an instant, she is struck and in excruciating pain, which causes her to collapse to the ground, sobbing uncontrollably. Why? Why? Kerrigan is scooped up and carried away by her father. Who would do this to the Olympic hopeful? Nancy Kerrigan is the 1993 women's figure skating champion and bronze medalist from the 1992 Olympic Games. Everyone loves this elegantly refined skater. Why would someone want to hurt her? The spectacle that unfolds next dominates the news cycle over the next 7 weeks, leading to the climax that is the Winter Olympics. With Kerrigan unable to participate in the figure skating championships, rival Tonya Harding easily places first, landing a spot on the U.S. Olympic team. Her accomplishment, though, is overshadowed by the investigation of the attack on Kerrigan. How frustrating for Harding. She should be answering questions about her achievement, not about her rival's injury. As the investigation progresses, it becomes clear that Harding has a connection to it after all. In fact, her ex-husband, Jeff Gillooly, Harding's bodyguard, Sean Eckert, and the man who strikes Kerrigan, Shane Stant, are all arrested and charged with planning and carrying out the attack. They're on their way to prison, but they don't go quietly. They implicate Tonya Harding in the plot. The U.S. Olympic Committee has second thoughts about Harding. They want to remove her from the team. Harding files a $25 million lawsuit against them, and the Olympic Committee decides that she can stay. But karma has a way of evening the score. Nancy Kerrigan recovers from her injury and is allowed a spot on the Olympic team alongside Harding. In competition, Harding is hampered by a broken skate lace during her free skate performance. She starts and stops repeatedly. In frustration and in a last-ditch attempt to save face, she cries and begs the judges to let her fix her skate and start all over again. She is granted a do-over, but cheaters never prosper. Tonya Harding finishes 8th, missing out on the podium once again in her second Olympic appearance. Nancy Kerrigan skates 2 of the best performances of her career, taking home an Olympic silver medal, just 7 weeks after being clubbed on her knee on this day in 1994. There are 359 days left in the year. On This Day is produced by me, Dave Schultz. Thank you very much for listening. Today's episode written by Elizabeth Schultz. #LizzieB. On this day in 1853, President-elect Franklin Pierce is in a train wreck near Andover, Massachusetts. His 11-year-old son Benjamin is killed in the crash. And born on this day in 1925, John DeLorean, engineer, businessman, founder of the DeLorean Motor Company, the DeLorean, that stainless steel car in Back to the Future. So if you're still listening, go for the gold. Talk to you tomorrow.